What's up, Michael? Alright, let's start this soon. Alright. Um, alright. I guess I'll start or something. Just do a little bit for now. What's up, everyone? Reporting hospitalizations. That's cool, actually. That's super dope. So you'll be the person at the front telling young people that they have to stay inside because it affects everyone. Woo, what's good? Virtual Raveathon. Alright, well, let's start, I guess. Let's do something at least. And then, I don't know if I have any friends that trickle in later, they can just ask the same questions and I'll just be redundant with this. So, Lightroom, huh? And I'm doing this on a new setup too, so I apologize if some things are weird. If I'm too quiet or anything's too loud, let me know as well. I don't know how any of these settings are. But, this is it. This is the crazy thing they call Lightroom. Crush your stuff. I don't think I need to do this. Everyone knows what import is. Then you find something and then you just import it in. Yeah. All right. So let's just start how I do one of mine then. Let's pick something that's not like super gnarly. Something that's kind of blank and that you can kind of mess with a lot. Just because I know that the way that I do a lot of my stuff is I go pretty heavy, I would say, in the colors. So I want something that's not too dominant, I would say. I can probably do something like this. Mr. John Yang. So this is how I usually start up actually. This is preference. I do white background. You can do black if you want. It depends. I think I changed this whether or not what mood I want to edit for. And then I actually, that's the wrong way. That's the right, whoa. I zoom it out just a tiny bit. Apparently it doesn't work on this. Works a little bit better on fucking, give me a sec. Works a little bit better on Mac. But I zoom it out just a tad bit just to kind of get it to once, just so it fills the whole screen. In my opinion, I think that Lightroom is a top-down system. It's meant to kind of go top to bottom. Some people say, I know I had a discussion with John actually, is that he thinks that the calibration, he likes to do this first and kind of change around the colors a little bit and how they work a little bit before he goes and everything else. But I think that's preference once you get down to it. But usually what I start off is just with the temp, just with the color, because this can pretty much make or break. I think, in my opinion, actually, if you're trying to go for, especially like moody colors and whatnot, please if you do this, this kind of creates the mood, and it's definitely a nice combination between here. You can use this to kind of pick somewhere you want to neutralize, and it kind of samples it. So if you want a neutral skin tone, it'll do this. If you want the sky to be kind of, you know, white neutral, it'll do that first. But I like to mess around with just on my own. It really depends. I mostly edit most photos a couple times over just because you don't really know what mood until you kind of get down to it and you see what works and what doesn't work. Because at the end of the day, your photo is kind of like, it starts off kind of as like a canvas, so to say. Not a clean canvas, but a canvas that's like already predetermined in the colors. And that's why a lot of people are so obsessed with like sensors and how they render, is because for the most part, certain sensors, how they render colors, will be played with differently. Like for instance, I don't like Fuji because a lot of Fuji's colors are really, really dominant. And it's really hard to tweak to what I want because I like a blank canvas, but Fuji kind of puts their own stuff onto it, which isn't bad, but it's not for me. Deep, how can you use saturation without my photos actually? If you actually want a real answer to that, I think that's Bjorn. Is that Bjorn? I don't know who that is. Then yeah, I can actually do that. But first, I'm gonna go down here. I think I want to make this a little bit cool, a little bit cooler, and I kind of want to do a deep blue. So I have this tint over to a little bit more purple, just to kind of get a deep blue color. Let me fix the zoom actually, just so, because sometimes I do like to zoom in, but all right. Then Cody, my man. All right. Then I start with the exposure. First things first. If you look at I actually use the histogram a lot, and you can actually edit from the histogram. And I think the histogram is something that's really important that a lot of people should know, because it kind of affects how some photos are. Like for example, this one is a really bright photo, but if you look at here, this photo, a lot of kind of the lines here and dots here kind of shift towards the darks, and this is the blacks, which is the 10% darkest colors, or darkest shades, tones. The shadows, which is the upper 90% of the darker ones. Exposures is kind of everything in the middle. It kind of shifts the whole thing. And the highlights is the darkest 90% of the darkest brightest pixels, and this the 10% of the brightest pixels are the whites. So going back to here, understanding your histogram can kind of help you get to what type of mood you want to set, and I think mood is what a lot of people try to go for. So I'll probably do this twice over. I'll do a little bit brighter, so I'll set it up bright a little bit. I don't do too bright because I do a lot of adjustments. Contrast is kind of everything in the middle. You can see, look how the graph kind of spreads out. It's kind of pushing things in the middle outwards and inwards. So it's pushing the darkest darker, and it's pushing the brighter's brighter. So it's kind of everything in the mid-tone, it's called, kind of gets pushed over a little bit. But that's what a lot of people know how to use to kind of like make things pop out, make things darker, make the brighter's contrast. But I'm not a big fan of it because you can kind of do it with other methods that give you more control, because this one you don't really have too much control over. And move to the highlights, and this is all preference how you do it. I like to, recently I've been on a trend where I bump my highlights up a little bit. As you can see, everything kind of gets brighter, but it doesn't blow out, it doesn't get too bright, as opposed to the whites here where you bump it up a lot and everything is really, really white, really, really bright as well. So I bump up the highlights a little bit, and the shadows play around a little bit just to see how it feels, or see how it looks. Probably gonna bring this a little bit down actually. I'll bring the whites down, shadows down, and I'll bring probably the blacks. I'll bring it a little bit down, and this you don't need to as well. I'm pretty sure everyone knows. You can always go back and change stuff, but it's good to set a kind of a canvas before you get to the tone curves, and I think the tone curves are the most important part. Texture, I honestly have no idea what this is. This is new. What is this? I have no idea. Okay, I apologize for that. But clarity is, it's kind of the same thing as contrast, but it's kind of like the micro contrast between. That's everything is getting much darker and brighter. See between. It's not flattering at all, but a lot of things you'll see in like the LA hypebeast, whatever shoot you do, wide angle, shoot from the floor, really dark stuff, is they bump up the clarity a lot. So if you're interested in that, how it works. This could also help actually soften skin. For example, if you're doing a portrait where it's super, super close in someone's skin, and if you want something quick that can kind of soften it up and not get it kind of overdone, then clarity would be your bet. It kind of makes things a little bit less sharper, a little blurry. It can be overdone definitely, especially with photos like this where it's not super close. But that can definitely help. And then dehaze is hazing of, so essentially if you shoot in some light where, I don't think I have any examples here, or things kind of get blown out, but here, for instance of this, where this light over here, if it kind of gets too much, sometimes it goes into the lens barrel and it kind of bounces around inside the lens, and it kind of makes the photo lose contrast, kind of blows it out a little bit. Dehaze is what I'll use to kind of bring some of the darks back in that haziness. You can see this kind of tightens up a little bit as opposed to being super spread out. And obviously the opposite. So probably this is what you'll see something be like super hazy. It's something kind of bright like this. And this is something they added that kind of helps with that a little bit. It's nice, to say the least. Okay, tone curves. Cool. So this stuff, is the bread and butter of photos, in my opinion at least. I'm a big tone curve junkie. Some people say otherwise. You don't really need to do it or mess with it too much, but I really like tone curves because I think they give you a lot of how do I say, a lot of, not freedom, but also you can do precise movements with these. So how this kind of works is that this at the bottom left of this tone curve graph is the darkest of the darks. The absolute, like the darkest of the dark. So if you bump this up a little bit, you can see how the blacks here, they're not truly black anymore. They kind of get a little bit gray, right? If you go up all the way, it kind of makes them go Super Saiyan and makes this essentially this dark point becomes a white point, which is insane. Hi Sophia. So usually what most people do is most people bump this up a little bit. Even if you like your darks a little bit dark, this is a common thing that a lot of people do, but I'll leave this one for now. This here is this one here is kind of it's the shadows essentially of above. So as you can see from the histogram up here, this shadow area is moving around a ton. But I think the difference between this and this is that this is more on a gradual scale that also brings the blacks with it. You're not just only singling out one area and kind of destroying it. You're bringing everything together so it's much more smooth. This is the mid zones, kind of everything in the middle, and then this is the highlights, and then this is the white point. So if you don't want things to be super white, so you see John's hoodie over here, if you bring it down, it kind of gets, you know, darker, closer to black, but essentially it's just not white anymore. So I bump this down a little bit, I bump this up a little bit, and then kind of play with it to see what you want. Everyone kind of has the preferences and what they want out of a photo, if it's be moody or not. Recently I've been kind of bringing everything below the curve and kind of give it more of like a flatter, darker look. But again, that's just preference, and this is definitely how I've been doing a lot of my curves recently. And then next is the color channels, and these essentially are just each, you know, RGB, how colors are made. But pretty much if you do the same on all of them, that'll, in the bottom, like the basicness of it is you do the same on all of them, they kind of match each other. But again, these are still blacks, shadows, midtones, highlights, and whites. And then if you bring it up, it pushes that color into it, and if you bring it down, it kind of takes that color out. So as an example, if you S-curve, which is the S-curve is essentially the same thing as darkening the blacks, darkening shadows, and upping the whites, upping the highlights. So you can see through here, this kind of curve here. If you match it on all of them, it should add a little bit more contrast to it. It also helps with managing colors a little bit directly and give a little bit of a boost. But let's see how this looks. So the blues will be super intense, definitely. So maybe I'll tone it down a little bit, but also I'll get to that later, just because that's a lot of the. That is a lot of the temperature in play, making the mountains like super blue. Just gotta make sure that skin is doing alright, and I'll fix all this in a bit. So I think that's good for that, and after a while you'll know, just by playing with it, you'll kind of know what you like, and then you can save presets that do different things that kind of, mostly it's just saving the tone curve, because you're going to change everything else except for the tone curve, mostly in the presets. At least it's, for most people I talk to, it's kind of how, that's kind of why they have a preset. Then here's just another thing that gives you a little bit of a micro adjustment for your tones. Just, it's on a slider, so it's a little bit easier to kind of navigate. So I'm just gonna bump these shadows down a little bit, give the blacks a little bit of a darker look, but not too dark, because even though I bump this up here, if you kind of bring everything else down over here at this bottom, it can still kind of give that black a really, really dark look, but it won't make it kind of like empty. It'll still have a lot of kind of detail to it. Alright, so the next one then is just the color slider, and this one you can spend hours on, just because this is really just all the colors in here all the colors in the photo and you want to touch them directly. So for instance, one that I would be touching in this one would just be the blues. I think definitely. You gotta just slide it around to see what you want. But essentially you have the hue here, so you get anything from light blue to, I guess, purple, pink, and then kind of slide it where you want it to be. Saturation, which is how strong it is, and luminance is just how bright it is, essentially. So if I bump this up, the blue color is going to be super bright. Bump this back, it's going to be super, super dark. So kind of have it in between here. I think I want it to overpowering. We'll see. We'll see. I think the greens as well. And the tree. Oh, okay. Never mind. Greens apparently don't do anything. What's this over here? Alright, well, that's cool. So then oranges. This is where you mostly would do skin tones. Would either be yellow, reds, or oranges. And you kind of want something that looks a little bit flattering. And then a lot of people, as you can see here, a lot of people really like to bump up the luminance on this because it kind of gives it a brighter look, especially with skin tones. And then push it a little bit maybe towards red, but don't do too much on red just because if people are looking, especially like his lips or his hands or whatnot, will get a little bit crazy. And then I guess I found the color that most of his face is magenta. Let's make this a little bit brighter. Maybe give less hue, maybe a little more red. Sure, why not? That should be good for now. His hands is definitely a different story, but that's fine for now. Split toning, huh? So split toning is pretty much in these highlights, which is the brighter ones, and then shadows, which are here. You can kind of add a tint to it in a way, and that's what this here is for. And it's really, 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 really good, especially for creating the moods of photos, because a lot of the moods are set by kind of dabbing in colors in areas where maybe they don't belong, but also at the same time it can just change a lot. So for instance, I think I'm going to highlights, add a little bit of a green to offset the blueness of it so it's not super crazy. And I'm going to offset that a little bit by, oh my god, it's automatically doing it. Play around here. I think I'm going to do a little bit on the warmer side. So this is where I guess color theory is like super cool and super helpful for crazy color combinations you can do. Because essentially it's just complementary colors, colors that work a little bit well together. And also if you really want, just kind of playing with everything. But I think I'll do something like this. So it's a little bit greener than it was before. So if I started with this, right? Did I just fucking delete it? No, no. Okay. And also the key below your escape key, was it backward slash? Is how you look at the before. So you can kind of look at where you started and how much you've either destroyed it or made it better. So from here, this is without the split toning. You see it's I think in my screen at least. I don't know if my monitor is calibrated, but it's a little bit up here, a little bit different color. It's definitely a lot of it blue here. Turn on the split tone and it gets a little bit more green, kind of bounces out a little bit. And then if I go back to tint, I can change it back over here to kind of lessen the intensity of it, moving more towards purple, maybe a little bit warmer. Near that. The next one is detail, and so sharpening. Do you tend to use complementary color split toning? Is it case by case for you? So when it comes to split toning, I think complementary colors is something that's super, super good and you should definitely know. Especially in most cases, it's some sort of off tone of orange and blue, for instance, and mostly blues and highlights and oranges and shadows. In this case, I have a little bit green, which is still kind of closest to blue, but it's not too far off where it's really conflicting. For the most part, most photos kind of have a dominant color feel, if that makes sense. Like these are all kind of blue. This one is a much more like either orange brownish type of feeling, right? Maybe reddish. I usually try to match those colors and not try to change it too much, because if you try to fight essentially against it, sometimes it could not say ruin the color, so to say, but really make it all so like the color kind of gets blended together, if that makes sense. So like here, if I change this here to like a, was it to like this, maybe like a green, it kind of, everything kind of goes with it because it's one color that's like super dominant. But I think that in most cases though, it is case by case, because I'm not looking at a photo and I'm thinking, all right, these two could go well together. But I think if you have a style, that probably is best case. Is that you should know what colors to aim for, what colors you're going to be shooting it around, what light. I think lighting is probably the most overlooked thing as well, because you can't fix bad lighting in a photo. Um, but I mean, the sliders here, you can always just play with it. But in my opinion, I think it's better just to kind of match it. And also, one thing with split tone that I've noticed, that if you try to edit pictures of, let's say, like change the colors of skies and whatnot, you're shooting into a sunset and you want to really bring out the pop of it. Like for instance, I could use this one. If you really want to make these highlight colors here a different color, you want to make it more pinkish, the way you do it is split toning the highlights. You really bump it up here, and this is how you really can change the color of sunset. You know, how you make it even more orange than you want it to be. Maybe a different color. Maybe, you know, you want to get a kind of a pinkish sky. Maybe the sky isn't actually pink, but this is how you would do it. 100%. Okay, back to the other one. What was it? Okay, here. So on to sharpening for now. Lightroom sharpening actually isn't great. It's not bad, but there's things that are a little bit better. So how I do this is that I hold Alt, and when you hold Alt, and I'll show with masking because why blues highlights, orange shadows, and not why blue highlights and orange shadows and not vice versa. It's because I mean, most people do vice versa actually. I think it's blue shadows and orange highlights because orange highlights match the skin, right? And that's what most of the bright ones are, is that you're matching the sky, you're matching the skin here, and then mostly the blue undertone is what people have for shadows here. So for this one where there's a lot of shadows, how you kind of get the feel, how you kind of get the, you know, this darkness type of feeling without using temperature is this. This is just another complement to add to temperature. So here can essentially, this is like a dark blue type feeling. You've seen these a lot in like movies and whatnot, how they kind of get that really dark feel, but it's not too dark, but it is kind of a feeling that you're like, all right, this is nighttime. It kind of sets it for you. That's kind of how this can also complement that as well, or work with that. But blue shadows and orange highlights is definitely way more common. Just because how skin and everything works is that people, you know, you don't really want to make other people's skin, you know, different colors. But I think that also depends on how bright or how moody you're editing your photos. Because this one's a little bit darker on the end. I mean, I can't bump up the highlight or the exposure. See, it's a little bit brighter, but if it's a little bit darker, you kind of want to shift around that. But for details, if you hold Alt and you hold masking, you're able to kind of see outlines of what is getting sharpened. This is kind of how I do the sharpen, because you don't want to do everything being sharpened. This is everything, and then you kind of want to get the most important parts, so you really have, you know, it cut out of what is being sharpened. So I do it for here as well. You can kind of see the big difference actually. Let me zoom in a ton here. You can definitely see the difference between here, starting here, and then sharpening a ton. It kind of gets all liney a little bit. So you want to find the nice middle ground where his eyes are sharp here, but his skin doesn't kind of get all wiry. I don't know the word for that. There's the radius of it, so you want to kind of pop it out a little bit. The darker is less sharpened, I believe. And detail, you can see it here how it affects it. I don't do detail too much because it's kind of OD in a sense, but I think that is sharpening. And then noise reduction. Let's see if I have a photo that's under exposed a ton. Here, this one, there's tons and tons of noise here. So noise reduction, you can hold shift as well. You can see how it kind of reduces everything, but at the same time, it kind of makes things look like Play-Doh. So I actually don't use this that much. I usually just ride out the noise and just complement it with a ton of, either like a shit ton of grain to kind of overset it or offset it a little bit, or kind of just roll with the look. Just because if you try to fight it too much, it kind of loses everything, so you might as well just destroy everything. And just make it look intentional. So that's detail. Then lens correction is just, I mean, lenses have distortion. It could be very minimal or it could be a lot. Like lenses with the most distortions are the wide angle ones. So for example, this one here, you can see how the corners are pushed out. It doesn't look like there's like a whole bubble in here kind of bringing things away. It kind of flattens out the photo a little bit. I don't think it's necessary, because I think it definitely does change the look a lot, but I think it does help, especially if you're trying to flatten out the photo. And if you shoot a 50 at from distance, you're kind of going for the flat look in a way. Like there's not much dimensions into it. No, there's not much kind of dimensionality to it. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm pretty sure you know what I'm saying. This is just, yeah. I've never used this before, I'm gonna be honest with you. But I'm sure you can create some cool perspective with it, but it's not really my thing. I'll skip over that one. Let's see. This is highlights. Or sorry, this is vignetting. I use this sometimes. I think it definitely creates, especially on moody photos, it kind of brings it in a little bit, especially here. Yeah, this I think everyone knows what a vignette is. I think we all know what to do with this. The feather of it soften up a little bit so you can't see it at all. You can kind of see the halo of it here if I bump this down, the halo of it. But it's cool, I guess. I mean, this isn't actually. I'll keep it. Fuck it. Why not? So then grain. So recently I've been just doing standard grain because this can get a little much, and I just kind of bump it up actually to 60 or 50-ish. Let's zoom this out a little bit. So like this. So this grain actually I think looks really good in a way, because it doesn't really destroy the sharpness of it, but it does give some kind of texture to it as lost. A grain setting I used to use was actually 20-80-80. And pretty much it's just the roughness and the size is up a bit, but there's less grain in a way, so it just kind of looks more coarse on here. But I stopped using it because I think it's a little bit too much, and it's not. I like the grain to kind of be just a lot more, but not as big, as opposed to less but huge. It's kind of like, I think of it like sandpaper, like different type of grits of sandpaper. But I think grain's good. It brings out the sharpness a little bit for some reason. See here. So that not everything's like too soft or buttered. Just kind of give it. Even if it's like 30, you can't see too much, but it's good enough. And then calibration. Calibration, huh? Okay. So calibration is actually fucking huge. Like it's I think it's definitely underrated because no one knows what the hell this is doing. But I'll probably go this down to the best of my abilities I can explain, because I've been using this forever, how long, and I know a ton of people that I've talked to over the years just ignore this entirely. And I think the initial thing of calibration is kind of calibrating the colors that come out of the camera. So it's kind of used like that. That's why I think that John argues that this one can go first, because you're calibrating the colors that come out of your sensor to come out of your camera. But I use it to kind of complement what's already been done. So the top is just tints, so it's kind of the same thing up here, but this actually only affects shadows, which is a godsend. I think this is heavily underrated. especially because this tint can overdo everything, but you can offset it with this here, especially when it comes to either skin tones or whatnot. Like this is, it's super crazy how good this is. In the red primary, this kind of takes most colors that are along the red kind of line, or like the red curve, and just kind of shift it over a little bit. So everything is being affected here, from you see skin turning yellow and everything turning blue, to the other side where he's red and this is green. So if you want Christmas colors, then yeah, this is the slider. You just need to do this, and then it comes out. But I think in moderation, this kind of, the color balance kind of gets changed a little bit, and especially here with green as well. And you can tell here, this is like the most. But you can see how his skin color isn't, I mean, it is affected, but it's not that affected, honestly. It stays relatively the same. So I do around like this. I'll probably desaturate this, so it's less punctual around here. So essentially now it's just a darker version of it. So let me see what I can do with this to maybe give it a little bit more color. John. Yes, that is John. Thank you for your contribution, Jackie. So here, kind of have it like this. And then on top of this, so the saturation, you know what that is. And then vibrance actually is these. So the vibrance slider is just the most important colors that kind of dominate the photo. So if I do this, obviously it's the skin and then it's the blues. But it obviously it varies between each. But I like to turn it up a little bit and desaturate a little bit. So all the important colors are kind of bumped up a little bit, but all the rest of it is just kind of drowned out. And that's it from top to bottom. And then crop can create a lot on the effect of how things are viewed, especially if you zoom out. No, that's not out. Like this. I think this looks a lot different than this, and I think it's underrated how crop can actually change the mood a ton. Follows cooler colors, saturation follows warmer. I actually heard that too, but from my experience, it just seems like, right, like the warmer colors here, the blue or the red here and the blues here. So my understanding is just that. Let's see if I hover over it, what it actually says. Nope. All right, no tooltip. Great. That's at least how I thought about this, just because blues get blown, the reds get blown here on the skin color as well. But crop is underrated, especially this. This anamorphic is 100% sought after by a lot of people. This is cinematic, so essentially it's just black. So movies, a lot of movies shoot like this, and you just think there's a black bar here, but what actually is happening is that it's an anamorphic lens that shoots actually at this width, at this aspect ratio. It transforms the picture coming through, or coming to the sensor through that lens, and it just outputs it like this, which gives it a entirely different perspective that is, you can't replicate it with this, but I think in terms of fields you can still kind of get a feel for it. But recently I've been just doing there's no 6:9, 6 or 6:7. This is a good one too, because Cook Boys. That is true, yeah. Cook or Cookie Cook, whatever. My office, actually, I sit next to the video producer guy, and at my work, and he actually has we have a whole drawer just filled with Cook lenses, or Cookie lenses and whatnot and everything, and it's awesome. But yep, that's about it for this. Just keep it as shot for now. You can always crop it later in Instagram or whatever you want. But I'm gonna play around with this a little bit and see what I want out of this, because I do have let me see if I can find it real quick, how this photo actually looks like, or how I went with it the first time. And then every time you kind of look at a photo, it is kind of different in a way. So this is how I did it the first time. So super bright, everything's, the blues are definitely non-existent, skin's much brighter. But I figured change it up. Dude, I'm jealous too. It doesn't even let me use it. I mean, it's not like I let me use it. I have no business using it. But at the same time, he's like, yeah, I don't even use it. He just uses A7 S, or he's or what is it, A7 III for everything. So what you could do is that, let's say for example you have a good draft. Like if I just did this, this is actually not bad. This is a good look. I usually create virtual copies, so I still have the same settings, and they're carried over between each. But you can kind of go a different direction after you did all that work, especially on tone curves and whatnot. You can kind of change a lot of things. So for example, there's a brighter version, darker version, and then here it'll show before as the other one that you made a virtual copy of, and this is the after. Yeah, and I think that is kind of about it for Lightroom in a sense. Any questions or think I went too fast, let me know, DM me, do whatever. Just kind of did this, how my thought process works. But I'm gonna edit probably like 2 more. See how it goes. Just I have a ton of photos here that I haven't looked at that are still good photos that I picked out that I haven't seen in a while, that haven't redone or that could be redone a little bit, especially the one like this. Yeah, I think I'm gonna chill for now. Just kind of chill and see what comes out of this. Something like this. I get that washed out look a little bit. Let's see how this goes. Rustic feel here. Yellow. Great, it's just auto choosing stuff for me. Holy shit. This white balance is crazy. I think like gold now is like 8,000 or 9,000, something like that. I forgot actually, but it's somewhere around there. So this is way blown past it, but the original was super cold. So let's see, go from here. Let's bump this down a little bit. God, dude, this looks like a fucking Instagram filter. Like that. Actually, I kind of want to... What if I just did... And then... Shadows... What ISO is this even? 1600? Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I think that's a good look. It's really green though, but I'll come back to it eventually. And then now, as of recently, I have my own presets that are my flavor of the month preset that I change every fucking day, or every fucking time I edit something. But it's kind of extreme in a way. Whites, blacks crushed, highlights up a ton. Tone curve is super dipped, super dipped. But I mean, hey man, it's a good look. Compared to this, it really makes the brights pop out, and that's what I like about it. Is that now my recent trend is I'm a huge fan of just bright skin. Honestly, bright skin to a fault, like extremely bright skin. And I usually just play around from here. Dark shadows too. Pop this in a way. And honestly, this is like... This really ain't that bad for straight out. I've never had it. It's just straight out like gnarly. Alright. That's a good one actually. Yep. So this is how one of mine works. Especially with, in this case, this photo is the face. Half the face is like super bright, half is gonna be dark. So it's gonna be hard to kind of, if you want even skin tones, like this is like not it. But if you want to just kind of go for the stylistic nature of it, everything dark, face bright, it being blown out a little bit, I think that most people will say that this isn't that bad. It is a lot though. I probably would tone it down a little bit, but you can't tone it down a lot or else it kind of loses its punch to it. It's a good one. Let's see. These are, I don't have my hard drive like where it has like all my old stuff. So this is all like relatively new oldish stuff. And I just picked a handful. I want to kind of get on it. But let's see. Use selective filter. Put minus click. Can't do selective filter. It's true. That is true. You can do one of these. Minus clarity. This one. It just spreads out the brightness a ton. And it's actually not a bad look. But I like the fact that her left eye is insanely sharp. Like if I zoom in on this. Her left eye is insanely sharp. Just a little. Alright, here you go. Let's dehaze it, huh? Let's give it that, bump this down a little bit. Here you go, something like this. Yeah, that'd be a good one. I think I come back to this photo a shit ton just because it is super dope. Um, this lens is fuck. I think it was the 50R Summicron. The Yeah, I'll find an image for it. Hold on, because there's like different versions, right? It's the V1, so it's this one, this photo. Oh god, that is a heinous link. That is also way too big of a link to send. That is also heinously to send. No, this is this is an SLR lens. That lens I bought 3 different times and sold it 3 different times, and I keep wanting to buy it again, but I never have anything to shoot it on, so I don't know. Do with that. I'll come down to it, I don't know. God, John looks ridiculous here. Let's do this. Bump the highlights here, this back a little bit. I think those back a little bit. I have the luminance bumped a crap ton for this. I don't think this filter is gonna, or this preset. A question for Leshy: how much do I commit to spy? 240? Lucas, you can do 240 spy? Expiring at 424? That is not a good call. I don't think actually. Wait, how's a spy doing? I don't think that's a good call. Put. That's a put. I don't think that's a good put at all. That's such a bad call, actually. Let me see. Dude, it's 280. Lucas, if that drops to 240, you'll make so much money. But no, I don't think it's gonna drop to 240 on by 424. You're psycho. Yeah, get them tennies. Dude, whoever had Amazon calls is feasting. Just be real. This actually isn't terrible. This kind of gives like a film type of look. Especially the grain. I think the grain here does it the most. 64. Yep, that's... The grain and the highlights here do it the most for kind of the film look. He lost some color on his face, but... I think I'll touch this one individually, because you can put... Here, this would be like a light blue to like a yellow, goldenish split tone, just by looking at it. I don't even know what to do. Oh, this one. I wanted to do this one. Yeah, this one. Because look, his fucking head is so bright in this. Let's do this preset. Let's bump it down. No. I have to do it from scratch. I also lost all my old presets and everything that I made back in the day. Because my computer got fucking wiped. So everything is fresh. Bump this up. Let's do this. You have my grad preset? I don't even have that preset anymore. That preset is retired. I actually don't even have that one anymore. That's the one thing I forgot to save when I wiped my computer. Underexposed film. Okay, you know, that's a good question. Let me see. Film specifically. Alright, let me find... I have a photo actually that I can think about that could satisfy this question. Alright. the truthful answer of this is that I just commit. I really just commit to the look. So I did this. Let's do this photo. Hold on. Pictures. That's actually fucking dope question. You're right. I've thought about that a little bit recently too. Alright, so I can do folder. Film. Let's drag this photo in there. Let's do this. Let's sort through. I love you too, Lucas. You're the man. Come play video games with the boys sometimes. I think everyone's on right now. Okay, this photo. Alright. Buy my preset package, but it's Sasha's. Alright, settle down. Let's relax a little bit. Okay, something like this. Let me know if this is like, this is what you're talking about. Something like this, right? So, this is a good one because I told myself I would come back to do this. Yeah, something like this, huh? So, honestly, I bumped down the exposure and I roll with it. You want the darks to be dark and you want it to kind of be like this. Because it kind of covers, because if you bump this up, right? This is, I don't know. This is 72 dp. Oh fuck. Alright, it's 3700 by 2500 around. Regular high. Does it matter when you're editing? Or honestly, mostly it matters when you're printing. No, it's mostly about the DPI than anything in the res. Especially for printing. For editing photos, I imagine. Yeah, the DPI is 72 on this, but like I'm not printing this out, you know? So I'd roll with this. Does this affect editing? Dude, the thing about RAWs though, there's just so much data in there, so much like information and resolution that like it's whatever. Yeah, no worries. So let's do this. Bump down the clarity. This. Bump this up a little bit actually. I would roll something like this and just I would try to flatten it a little bit. Like if I took the tone curves and I just brought them all down except for this. Have this flat look. Then you can kind of roll with that as a look. Now you're on the minus clarity life. It's alright. I've really done it too much before. Maybe though. It doesn't look that bad for this because there's a lot of green here. Yeah.
Collecting dreams, are recollecting scenes recorded in bounded reams. Maybe we can build again higher than mezzanine. I'm resolute, sometimes recluse. Can you handle these stargazers looking beyond?
So that's how I do this. And like this is just a JPEG too. So like yeah, you gotta just kind of roll with it, cause there's just I don't think there's a point in like saving. If it's like super underexposed, you just gotta fucking let the bird fly, man. All right, but that's about it, I think. I don't have too many of these. I want to touch this one up too. Just I feel bad. I haven't given this one to Lucas yet, and he looks like a fucking baller in here. Let's see what this does. Make it warmer. Yellows are blown out. Why is his face blown out? What the hell? What this? Do that a little bit. Still blown out. Still a little bit blown out. Oh, he's super fucking yellow. What the hell? Let's do this. There you go. I don't think my monitor is calibrated. I'm gonna be honest. That's not bad. I'll ask Lucas if he wants this. Hold on, join. Cheers. Hey boys.
Nice stream there. Oh, I like that.
Oh, yeah.
I like it.
Do you want this photo?
Good stuff.
I know you probably don't have it, but do you want? I have a photo of you. Remember, behind. It was with Mo. It was
Yeah,
behind the thing. Do you want
Let's
it?
just freeze Griffin. Yeah, sure.
So you look like a handsome devil. I won't lie.
Behind.
Don't show it to me.
I'm gonna send it to
I
Griffin,
hate my appearance.
and then Griffin can send it to you.
Yeah,
Because.
Alright, send it to Griffin, he'll send it to me, I'll get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hold on, I'm gonna real quick. All right. Well, I'm done streaming. I did enough. People tuned out. I got through the juice of it. Thank you. I don't know who watched it. I'll probably keep the VOD up just in case anyone is interested in the future. But thank you. There's like one person here, two people in here, but like, all right. Thanks. Peace out.